Hi, welcome back to Cinesum. This movie name will be revealed at the end, please watch till the end. The movie begins with a hardened US Marine Mike saying farewell to a youthful woman at the field and traveling in a copter to his coming charge. In the coming scene, Mike and his warder Tommy are set up on a precipice overlooking a desert, staying for their target to arrive. Tommy is a chatterbox by nature, while Mike has a more serious disposition. They notice multiple people on bottom on one site and multiple fortified vehicles on the other approaching. Mike's target is a 65-time-old terrorist Sayed Asif. As Tommy and the voice over the radio try to get Mike to make the mega hit, he realizes that the group has gathered for a marriage and the target might be the bachelor's father. Matter further complicates when the bachelor and bridegroom block the target. Mike is ordered to take out the bachelor to get to the target, but he circa N' bring himself to take an innocent life. Mike lies to his command center that he lost the target. The brace are also spotted by fortified men guarding the form. Gunfire follows. The target incontinently flees, while Mike and Tommy are forced to retreat as fortified men start chasing them. Who would come a terrorist just to guard a marriage couple in the middle of nowhere? While running, they damage their GPS and hide behind a gemstone confirmation. The fortified men start walking towards the gemstone when Mike snappily creates a clever distraction to shoot them the other direction. After escaping the fortified men, the brace request an evacuation, but are told they need to cross the desert in front of them to get to a ville 5 hours down, where they can be picked up. They set out on bottom, riding sandstorms and scorching heat and noise. Mike with the stories of his son back home. Seeing Mike silent and putatively troubled by commodity, Tommy forces Mike to open up. Mike reveals that he's having a hard time proposing marriage to his gal Jenny. Tommy makes fun of him for being so spooked, but also gives him advice that originally marriages can be delicate, but over time you get the hang of it. While passing through the desert, wind brings a warning sign flying right beneath their bases. Mike takes the sign seriously, recalling that 33 million landmines have been buried in the desert in the last 40 times. Tommy assures him it's just a Berber trick to keep adversaries down. Mike is still pacing cautiously, his mind preoccupied with the warning sign. Tommy walks backwards, watch freely a many yards in front of Mike, taking light-hearted lodgings at Mike for being an overthinker. Suddenly a click sound is heard, and an explosion follows. Tommy had stepped on a landmine. As he goes temporarily deaf, Mike takes a step towards Tommy and hears another click where his bottom just landed. He freezes in shock. The beach from the blast starts to clear out. Tommy has survived the explosion, but his legs below the knees have been reattached. Tommy riots and shivers in pain. Mike, unfit to move himself, struggles to calm Tommy down. When nothing seems to work, Mike brings up Tommy's son, which gives him some provocation, and he is suitable to fit himself with the morphine Marines carry in their frontal fund. Tommy also tries to reach his radio, but the pain again takes over him. Seeing his mate in pain, Mike offers to take his bottom off the landmine in order to help Tommy. Mike speculates that maybe the landmine he stepped on is old and defunct. Tommy warns him not to, and in order to inhibit Mike, he pulls out his gun and aims it on his head. He tells Mike that he must survive no matter what and shoots himself. Mike helplessly screams in grief. He's stuck in the desert each by himself, unfit to move. He soon gets tired of standing and gets on his one knee. Mike realizes he must ever cross the radio line coming to Tommy several yards down. He ties his shoelace to in dismissal to pull the radio bag towards himself. Still, he learns that the radio's battery is dead, and the extra is on Tommy's body. Mike is dejected, but thinks of another plan. He makes a new arrangement to charge the radio using solar power. Mike is also suitable to communicate his elders. He requests immediate evacuation, but he's told that deliverance copters circa N' fly to his position because of frequency storms. However, a convoy will deliver him in about 52 hours. If it all goes well, Mike gets frustrated by the response. The major also suggests Mike to try digging a gutter and jumping in it, which would only result in a non-life-threatening branch loss. Mike decides to tough it out and stay for deliverance, setting a preamble on his watch. Also, another massive sandstorm hits full force. He manages to stay it out without moving from his spot. Once it's over, the first thing he realizes is that the storm has brought Tommy's body and thus the spare battery right coming to him, yet the radio has drifted too far from his reach. Hours pass in. Mike runs out of water and gets decreasingly hopeless and at times prodigies about shooting himself dead. He also notices a Berber coming towards him, walking in a brake swerve. Mike tries to advise him about the landmine, but the Berber imitates his conduct, putatively making fun of him. Mike tries to explain his fire to the Berber man, but he insists that Mike must take the coming step. He also takes Mike's water beaker and disappears into the desert. Fully dehydrated and hopeless, Mike proceeds to drink his piss when he notices a little Berber girl coming his way bringing back his water beaker. She hands it to Mike, and to his relief, it's full with water. Mike quenches his thirst. Although the girl no way speaks, using her toy dog faces, she too putatively tells Mike that he has to step off the mine and move on. Mike tells her that he's circa an apostrophe T move and asks the little girl to cost him his radio, but the girl does an apostrophe T understand. Hopeless, Mike gets too loud, spooking the girl down. Soon, the night falls and the temperature starts to drop. Mike lights a fire to keep himself warm. He starts hearing noises of wild creatures. He takes out his phone and looks at the filmland of his gal to keep himself distracted. He finds a videotape from his gal. In the videotape, Jenny tells Mike that she's staying for him. Mike must win the war and come back to her as soon as possible. Mike begins to get emotional. He's hysterical that he might no way see his gal again. Tired of everything passing to him, he starts to fall asleep, but he snaps out of it to find that the fire has failed out. He finds himself girdled by wild creatures. He tries to scarify them with his gun, but fails. Guess he should have watched a bit of Man vs. Wild. The creatures drag Tommy's body down. One beast starts to do toward him, but using his arsonist light, Mike shoots the beast with his gun. The beast lands on a landmine, causing an explosion and spooking the other creatures down. The morning arrives and the same Berber man again drops by. He tells Mike that he's veritably lucky that he has survived, therefore far indeed, after stepping on a landmine and spending a night in the desert with wild creatures. He formally again suggests Mike to step forward, but Mike does not misbehave. Mike tells him that he presumably knows the position of the mines, as he always walks in a pattern. The Berber responds that he does an apostrophe T know where the landmines are, and he only walks in a break swerve because it's safer than walking straight. Mike again asks him to cost his radio. The Berber man eventually agrees and brings the radio back to Mike and also heads on his way. Mike checks his watch and there's still 24 hours left for the help to arrive. He sluggishly starts hallucinating. Mike sees Tommy wake up from his death. The imaginary Tommy motivates Mike and tells him that he'll get out of this alive. The sun sets again, and Mike starts to suppose about all the miscalculations he has made in his life. He starts lamenting leaving his gal Jenny alone and coming to the charge. He again finds himself girdled by creatures. This time indeed mine explosions don't discourage them. Mike erratically starts shooting at them in the dark, but the creatures still attack him. He gets lost in his studies as he fights off the wild creatures. As the sun rises, Mike again descends back to reality. All the wild creatures that attacked him lay dead around him. Despite being outnumbered, he managed to kill all the creatures. Mike has been in that desert each alone by himself, with his bottom over the mine, without moving for the last 45 hours. He also receives a communication from his elderly, who informs him that the deliverance platoon is running late. The elderly asks him if he can hold on for 17 hours, formerly way past his breaking point. Mike replies that he cannot go any farther. The major tells him that there is someone who wants to talk to him. Mike also hears the voice of Jenny. Mike frenetically starts apologizing to her for leaving her, for intruding everything up and destroying everything he touches. He also starts hallucinating and sees Jenny sitting on a settee in front of him in the desert. He tries to reach her but starts losing strength. He begins to collapse when Berber catches him putatively arriving out of nowhere. The man starts nursing Mike's injuries and tells him about the time when he too formerly stepped on a mine, which took off his leg. He tells Mike that losing his leg felt like he'd lost everything in his life. Still, the pain of losing his leg was all washed down when he met his woman and had a son. He says that whatever happens in our life, we must keep moving on. Mike tells the man that he indeed is lucky, as his son who brought him water is really beautiful and has her father's smile. The man tells Mike that he no longer has a son. She failed in a mine explosion during one of their father-son excursions to dig out mines and replace them with drum barrels. Mike listens, dumbfounded. The Berber tells him he is happy his son came to meet Mike, but he really needs to move on now. Also, he leaves. Mike sees his son again, but she snappily fades down with the wind. Mike starts to hallucinate again. He sees his vituperative father who used to beat his mama while he watched helplessly. He sees his terminally ill mama dad. He also sees the lovely times he spent with his gal. At that moment, he hears on the radio that the deliverance platoon is passing, and they need him to make his exact position known. He picks up his flare, but before he gets to use it, the terrorists from ahead start shooting at him from over the hill. The firing triggers a mine explosion hard, which sends the flare flying out of Mike's hand and reach. He tries to fire back, but he's too weak. But he remembers his gal and uses it as a provocation. Mike also uses his gun to shoot at ground and triggers mine explosions around him, which creates a beach bank, shielding him from the adversary. He also snappily grabs his gun rifle and eliminates the terrorists. With the deliverance platoon passing in, the flare is still out of reach. Mike remembers the Berber man's words that you have to keep moving on. He takes a vault of faith and takes a step forward. Nothing happens. There is no explosion. He finds that the mine he would stepped on was in fact a drum can, presumably placed there by the Berber's son when she was alive. The townie's words come to pass. This entire time, the townie told him that he could move forward with his life and go back to his gal. He reminded him that he can do it, and the only thing stopping him was fear. Mike is relieved to be alive despite thin and lethal projectile injuries he sustained in the standoff. He starts bursting into gashes. Perhaps he was relieved knowing the fact that he'll be saved, or perhaps he was angry for not realizing the correctness of the situation. Whatever be the reason, one thing was for sure, this incident would change his life fully. And he'd learned a precious assignment. He also shoots the flare and collapses on the ground. The deliverance platoon finds him and he returns home. Back home at the field, Jenny is staying for him with happy gashes in her eyes. Indeed, before hugging her, he drops to one knee like he has done throughout different stages of his life. He also proposes to her, promising to not leave her alone again. They can move forward, one step at a time. This is a psychological thriller war film called Mine. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to watch more cine summaries like this, turn on notifications and press the like button to support us.